this.
All right, I have 5:15. Welcome anybody that's viewing this online and those that are here in person. We are here to have a public hearing on a proposed new downtown tax increment financing district in Kankakee. I'll go through the details of where it's located and where it's at in a second. My name is Mike Hoffman. I'm a consultant with Tesco Associates that does a lot of work for the city and prepared this TIF redevelopment plan. So once I go through a quick presentation of what's included in it, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have on the plan or TIF in general. I always like to start out by talking about what TIF is and what TIF isn't, because there's lots of misperceptions out there about tax increment financing. First of all, it is not a new tax. If you own property in this district, your taxes will remain essentially what they are, depending on what the different taxing bodies do. It is not going to add any additional tax to your property tax bill. What it is, this is a financing tool to promote development. So it's a way that the city can partner with private development to revitalize an area. So find new uses for existing buildings that might be vacant, or develop vacant property in the downtown area. So it's really a partnership tool, and it's a way to fund both public and private improvements. We can create a tax increment financing district that can help us to repair the streets or add new street lights. It did actually some of the streetscape work that you did see out there on Schuyler right now. A former tax increment financing district funded those kind of things. It's really a tool to kind of capture the increased value of property in an area and use it in that area. It's the simplest way to put it, right? And it's really a way to leverage that investment from the private sector to help both the private sector and the public sector in the area. Why do you create a tax increment financing district? There's some general reasons that apply to almost every tax increment district, and then there are some specific ones that are related to the downtown area. In general, what you're trying to do is to either stabilize or increase the value of property in an area. Particularly in this area, what we found was that the value of property had been declining over a period of years. Obviously, long-term, that's not a good trend. You want to make sure that your property values are stable or increasing. So we want to increase or reverse that declining equalized assessed value. We want to encourage private investment. There has been some in downtown Kankakee, but there's lots of opportunities for additional private investment. We want to encourage that, incentivize that to see those developments happen. And then we want to enhance the infrastructure. You know, roads and sewer lines and street lights and all those kind of things need to be replaced at certain points of time. Public parking lots, those kind of things. This is a way to help fund some of those improvements in the downtown area. Why is it important, particularly here, where we're talking about this new downtown TIF? You know, really downtown is the heart of the community. It's the place where you come to have a nice meal. It's a place you come to entertainment. It's a place you interact with the government. The recreation center's right here. Lots of things happen in the downtown area. If that downtown is not healthy, it can have a significant negative impact on the overall community. So we want to make sure that we have a good solid core in Kankakee, and TIF is a tool to help us do that. This kind of shows you generally how funding in a tax increment district works. These are generally set up for 23 years initially. Can be extended, but only by an act of the state legislature. So typically they're set up for 23 years. It can be less if you accomplish your goals prior to that. but again, typically set up for 23 years. And what you do is you look at the value of all the property out there right now, and that's generating tax revenue for all the different taxing districts, the school district, park district, the city, the county. They will continue to get that revenue stream from the property taxes that are generated based upon that value as it is today. Then what will happen when new development occurs out in the area, the overall value will increase because you've added new construction, you've renovated buildings, which is worth more than it was previously. That increase is then refunneled back into this specific area of the community to reinvest and revitalize the new downtown area that we're talking about. And then once the tax increment district is closed, that increased value is again available to benefit all of the different taxing bodies. It's really the simplest way I've seen to explain how TIF funds work and are moved. There's two pieces to the tax increment financing plan. Sometimes there's three. In this case, there's two. Those two pieces are an eligibility study and a redevelopment plan. The eligibility study looks at the criteria in state statute, compares it to this area, and determines whether it meets the criteria or it doesn't meet the criteria. The redevelopment plan then outlines what the city would like to see happen in the area. In terms of the boundaries of the area is about 84 acres. It's essentially the north end of downtown, to be the easiest verbally way to describe it. If you've been around Kankakee for a little while, you know that the city actually created two new tax increment districts not too long ago. The Riverfront TIF district, which you see kind of in the bottom left-hand corner there, and then the East Court TIF area that you see kind of sneaking in on the right side of the drawing. What we're talking about is the area essentially in between those two TIF districts. What we've seen is there's been quite a few developer requests for new development in some of these additional areas, and there's a need for partnership. We actually have Barbie Brewer-Watson, if you've not met, is the executive director of the city's economic development organization, and they've had lots of inquiries for development, and in almost every case there's substantial cost in some of those redevelopments, so that partnership tool really is needed and being requested by a lot of folks, and so we want to make sure that that tool is in place to promote redevelopment. So that's generally the area that we're talking about. In terms of the eligibility of the area, what we did is prove this on the conservation criteria. Actually probably meets the blighted criteria as well, but we did conservation, and essentially what that means is that over half of the buildings or the structures in the area are over 35 years in age. In this case, probably 95% of them are. I mean, most of them actually are older than that. So if you have that, then you need to meet 3 of the 13 additional criteria in the state statute. We met 5 of those. So we're very confident that it qualifies. We found deterioration of building and surface improvements in almost 80% of the properties. Excessive vacancy, at least 19% of this area had vacancies, inadequate utilities. Really, they're there, but they're aged and they need to be replaced in most cases. Lack of community planning, and then declining equalized assessed value. This is a map that kind of shows some of the redevelopment and site opportunities in the area. Some of these are vacant buildings now. Some of them are actually municipal parking lots that could be redeveloped into new development. Some of them are just underutilized structures, but there are quite a few. And this map isn't to say that we can't support something that's not drawn on this map. This is just kind of saying these are the ones we anticipate at this point in time. This will take a number of years to do. If everything on that map I just showed you happened, what we're estimating the equalized value would produce and what we could spend potentially in the area would be to the tune of about $33.2 million. You can see from this list the things that we can spend money on. Essentially, it is getting sites ready for development, so acquiring properties, dealing with environmental problems, making sure that adequate utilities are in place, and then it's paying for infrastructure things that are necessary for the area. We can assemble properties, we can certainly do planning and engineering costs, rehabilitation of structures. We would anticipate that being a significant cost in this area given the age of the structures and the conditions of them. We think that that's really important. We can pay for some interest costs. Job training and relocation absolutely is something we could pay for through the TIF. So you can see from this, potentially we could generate quite a bit of money from this tax increment financing district, and we're optimistic that we're able to do that. This is just another map showing you the boundaries. The process We sent out literally hundreds of notices to the property owners in this downtown area, as well as properties within 750 feet, to let them know about this public hearing. We also published 2 notifications in the newspaper. And also, as a part of that process, is what's called a joint review board. That joint review board is made up of the different taxing bodies in and around Kankakee that serve this particular area of the community. So the Park District, the School District, the county, township, they're all part of that joint review board, as well as the city and a resident representative. We had a meeting with that group on March 10th at 1:30 right here in this building. And they did vote to support the TIF. They felt that it met the state statute requirements that were there, and were comfortable with what was being proposed. They'd asked for one minor change to the language in the document that talks about the ability to share money between different TIFs, but other than that, they were supportive of the TIF. So what we're doing now is having a public hearing, taking public comments and questions. The city will not be acting on this tonight. By statute, we have to wait for at least 14 days after the public hearing before the city council can take any action on the TIF. So probably the first city council meeting in May, this will most likely be on the agenda for review and approval. So with that, I will conclude my comments and open it up for public comments and questions, and be happy to answer any of those that I can. I would ask that, I'm going to put the microphone back on the podium, if you could speak into the microphone, because this is televised. State your name for the record, and then any comments or questions you got. All right? Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Willie Pearl Burrell. I'm requesting, I've reviewed the TIF board, and I'd like, just so that the people who are here, my office building is right here. And I was in the original downtown business district. And I'm requesting that the, oh shucks, I can't read anything about my classes. I want it to be concise and short. I'm requesting the inclusion of the 300 block of North Indiana be included in the establishment of the new downtown Kankakee increment financing TIF district. I have an office building that is 8,000 square feet that was previously occupied by the Social Security Administration. It is 1 block north of what the city has proposed. And I think that that should be included, because at some point in time within the next few months, I plan to advertise to companies outside of the area, and I would like to be included in the TIF district. And as much effort, time, money that my family has invested in this community, I think it's a slap in the face not to include the 300 block of North Indiana. Thank you so much. Oh, if you have any questions.
No, I know the property that you're talking about. I should talk about this too. I tell you to do it. I should do it myself. So no, we talked on the phone a little bit. I did look into that a little bit. I can explain to you why it wasn't included. You won't like the answer, but I will explain it to you anyway. So one of the things we did look at when we were creating the boundaries of this new TIF was the KDC, the Kankakee Downtown Corporation's kind of boundary line for their special service area, which stops right where we stopped it. It doesn't include your property in that special service area. So we had to create some criteria. Honestly, this TIF could expand for numerous blocks, really in most directions. So we had to draw a line somewhere. We started with that KDC boundary. The other thing that we were looking at in forming boundaries was we didn't want to include a lot of residential properties in this area because, as I mentioned, there was two pieces of the TIF plan. There's a possible third, and that would be a housing study, and that is triggered when you get 75 or more housing units in an area. In your case, you've got housing project essentially on one side and you got apartments on the other. So we didn't want to include them. Now that doesn't mean we couldn't have just notched up and included yours and not included those. We absolutely could have. All I'm doing is explaining how the line got drawn where it was. I wished it was easy to just add a piece into the TIF. And it is early on. It is not so easy to do it now. Once we have published a boundary and conducted the public hearing and sent out all those notices required by TIF statute, we would have to notify everybody again of a proposed boundary change. To take questions on the properties that were in the area, any questions. So some people are saying, where are you going to start with first? What's the first project going to be? What is your proposal to see what type of redevelopment you want to see in the area? Those are the types of questions that we would normally get. Your question is very valid. It absolutely is, and I would probably be making the same question if I were you. So it's not that question was inappropriate. It's completely appropriate. It's just that the way TIF statute is set up, once you draw a line and send your notices out, you can't change it, you can't add it. You can take property out, according to the statute. You can't add property in without going back and through the notification process again.
So why wasn't I notified that you were going to draw this? You notified me that it had been drawn, but you did not notify me that it was going to be drawn. So
correct.
If you did, you automatically excluded me.
Well, what we did do was we had public meetings with the park board, the school district, and the city council to talk about the tentative boundary at the regular meetings. We did not send out notices for those, but those were at public meetings.
But if you were drawing something that is final, why bother with this public hearing? If you didn't want to hear from anyone who had objections or wanted to be a part of, what's the purpose?
I do appreciate your point, and like I said, I would probably be making the same point that you are if I was in your shoes. I wish we didn't have this publication requirement hanging over our head, because it does literally cost thousands of dollars to do all those notifications.
Could you forward me a copy to the 300 at sbcglobal.com?
Hang on. Yes, but can you repeat that email address for me, please?
That's Ralph300 at sbcglobal.net.
Sure, I would be happy to do that. Will do. And I do appreciate the concern. I'm really not trying to minimize it at all.
What you're saying is, no, what was done, you cut my property out that was previously, and you should have had notice of that it was the business district.
Well, it's not currently in the downtown zoning district for business, and it's not in the special service area. Those are the two things that I looked at. Maybe there was something previously that I wasn't aware of, and I apologize for that.
Well, if it was removed, then I should have been notified. If it was removed, it had to be in the business district in order for me to have the Social Security office there. And if I was removed,
no.
Yes, it did. That was one of the specific things that had to be, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So if you removed me out of the business district, I should have been notified.
On your tax bill, is there a separate line item for special service area?
I don't care what you call it, but if you remove something, or if you take away my zoning, or if you do anything that's going to affect my property, I should be notified.
I agree. No argument. The property, well, I've only been working for the city for about 2 or 3 years. As far as I know, the property has always been zoned C2, at least in the last 2 or 3 years. What was done prior to that, I can't speak to it. if the zoning was changed, absolutely. I agree.
What you're saying, well, you did put a couple of black businesses in the area. One is a bar. You went down, you picked up Cypress. I don't get it. If you guys are so good at this, not that I object to the bar being there, but if you go down and pick up, what you did was zigzag. Now they don't cut out certain people, and I will one of them, and I will see you in court. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Barbie, Elizabeth, you guys want to say anything? Don't need to, but you're welcome to.
No, I mean, we've done this presentation. I think we'll follow up on some extra things. I'm gonna look into the history of your property to see when it was, what it was, if it was ever in that business district, and I'll get back to you on that, because, I mean, if it was there, we need to find out some more information, so I'll look into that.
Unfortunately, the way the TIF notification process works, it would almost be easier to look at creating an additional TIF than it would be to expand this one at this point. And I hate to say that, but that's the truth of the matter because of the notification requirements that are involved in these things. That's just kind of how it works. I didn't write the TIF legislation, believe me. It's
Just like the legislation they're writing in the South now to cut people out of voting, so is everything else done purposely. Purposely.
Well, I can tell you for a fact that I did not purposely cut anybody out of this particular TIF. Like I said, I worked with the boundaries of KDC right now to look at what was already established as a special service area. We met with the school district, we met with the park district, we met with the aldermen. In fact, some of the aldermen suggested some modifications that we added some areas to the area. So you were talking about the area that extends north along Schuyler. That actually goes a little bit outside the special service area, but that was a request from the local alderman, which made sense to us, and so we certainly looked at that area at their request.
And when you made sure that the property, which I understand was purchased by the city, and you stand there on that and you don't see my building down there, that it should be included, what kind of investigation did you do when you ran around the city to see what was what?
I've explained all I can explain. I'd be repeating myself if I said anything else. We started from the KDC boundaries. That's where the starting point of what we did. And like I said, we could honestly expand this thing for multiple blocks and multiple directions, but we had to draw the line somewhere, and we did purposefully go to the aldermen, the school district, and the park district prior to beginning any of this work to talk about the tentative boundaries. So.
And my office building was purposely left out.
I didn't look at your office building and say this one doesn't belong in the TIF. No, I didn't do that. I looked at the boundaries of the special service area, ma'am. That's.
The special service, was that included in the downtown district?
Yes.
I was in the downtown district, unless you guys changed it.
Again, as Barbie said, she's going to try to look into that, and we'll see if we can figure out when that change occurred.
Or is this another way of saying, we don't want you? Let me tell you one thing. I've never received one penny, one scratch of money from the City of Kankakee to do anything. Everything we did was from our own pockets. Now, with all this money coming in, you might say, well, she might ask for some money. And most of your good people will say, we don't want her to have any of our district TIF money. Okay? You sound just like the governor of Alabama, or Georgia. Don't bring people. You cannot. You'll be arrested if you give somebody who's been standing on the line for 3 hours If you bring down some water, we're gonna arrest you.
Ma'am,
That's the law.
I think that's a little unfair, but
No, it's
okay.
not unfair. That's exactly what it says. I read it.
I'm not arguing what their law says. I'm saying that that's not what I did here.
Well, you must have, not in that order, but when you went, surely you went up Indiana. And surely you would have looked at the old downtown business district. Surely you did that.
No, I looked at the current downtown business district. Yeah.
I was nobody told me I was not in the downtown district anymore.
If you are in the district, you would be paying special service area taxes.
Listen, I pay more taxes than most of these people around here who sit on Brook Street. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't turn down my...
It's okay.
But I will address this too at some other time. I will address it at another time.
And I will email you the requirements for notification and such that we talked about, so. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't get you well. I didn't hear your name. And I didn't address you by name, and I apologize.
No, it's okay. Mike Hoffman. Mhm.
Okay. But we will come again.
Okay. Thank you. I do appreciate you coming out and raising the concern. Thank you.
Good evening.
Okay. Yes, it is 5:40. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. As I mentioned, the next step will be to take this to City Council in a few weeks. But we'll do some research. We'll be in touch about your questions and comments prior to that, okay?
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just got there to sign checks and stuff, so I'm gonna go back and just look over at you. I'll see you shortly. I'll see you in a little bit, Mike.
I didn't look at bills for CDA, but
We'll just swing it.
I
I think you know all of them, Barb. You always do.
know, but I feel like I haven't looked
I'll
at
look at a little extra, but I think it'll be fine.
it.
Thank